Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure having you join us on yet another episode of the Yaba Voice webinar. This is the month of October, and it's a special month because it's a month that we get to celebrate the World Mental Health Day. And the topic this year is something really fascinating. But before I run off, I would hand over to the medical director who will formally welcome us to this webinar. Over to you, Dr. Lubinga Dekileowe.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kemi Akitoyese, for holding forth and keeping the flag flying concerning this program. I want to welcome everybody to this month's edition of webinar by Yaba Voice. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, wherever you are hearing us from. As you all know, Yaba Voice is a platform for mental health education, advocacy, and community outreach. It is a social media platform of Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital Yaba Lagos, through which the hospital create awareness and educate the populace on mental health issues. Today's topic is Beyond the Seen, the Unseen, Mental Issues in Critical Situations. The topic, once again, is Beyond the Seen, the Unseen, Mental Health Issues in Critical Situations. According to the World Health Organization, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of diseases alone. Meaning that health is maintained on three tripod stands: the physical, the mental, and the social. Now, any of these status of health can be compromised by any critical situations. Critical situations can be man-made or natural. But today, in today's webinar, we are looking at the effects or the relationship between critical situation and the mental health. In today's webinar, we are going to answer some questions. What do we understand by the mental health of an individual? How important is mental health in critical situations? What is the relationship between critical situations and mental health? How do we seek help in critical situations? And how do we maintain a very sound mental health in critical situations? To address these issues are great mental health experts on this platform this afternoon. The first of them is Dr. Mrs. Olufunmilayo Akinola, a chief consultant psychiatrist with over 25 years of psychiatric experience. She's involved in hospital community education, outreach programs, psychiatric rehabilitation, advocacy, and clinical practice. Dr. Akinola is a fellow and examiner of the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria. She's also a NABOSH internationally certified occupational health and safety specialist and an astute administrator. Dr. Akinola is the current secretary, is the current chairman of the Faculty of Psychiatry of the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria. She is the chief consultant in charge of the OSHOD annex of our hospital. Our passion includes mentoring adolescents and young adults, speaking at seminars, conferences, traveling, and reading. Our second presenter today is Borakiyo Olayiwola Gabriel. Mr. Gabriel is a licensed clinical psychologist with about 20 years experience in the field. He has passion to provide clients with psychological assessment to enable them to discover potential and resources for growth, on psychotherapy to help them to facilitate social and personal adjustments and live a more meaningful and fulfilling life. He currently works at the psychology department of the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Yaba, Lagos. Mr. Gabriel is presently a doctoral candidate in clinical psychology at the University of Ibadan. He has a master's degree in clinical psychology at the University of Lagos and a first degree in psychology from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, in Enugu. He is currently serving a second term as the vice chairman of the Lagos chapter of the Nigerian Psychological Association and chairs other committees in the association. As a clinical psychologist, Mr. Gabriel's major area of emphasis is on psychological evaluation, psychotherapy, training, and development. He has worked with diverse populations at different settings and levels for both treatment and assessments. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I also want to let you know that Mr. Akin Gabriel has been involved in championing the cause of the Nigerian Association of Clinical Psychology for about a decade through the presentation of papers at conferences and as a trainer at our update program. Apart from his regular clinic, he is consultant clinical psychologist to some service centers. He's also involved in on-demand intervention, training and teaching to students of psychology in various tertiary institutions. Mr. Aki Gabriel loves traveling, poetry, and theater. He is happily married with 2 children. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to encourage us to kindly relax and listen to our mental health experts as we promise you a rewarding session of today's webinar. Over to you, Dr. Kemi Akitoyeshi.
Thank you, Medical Director, sir, for that arousing welcome. The Medical Director had introduced the concepts that we're talking about today to us. We're looking at beyond the scene, the unseen, and mental health issues in critical situations. Now, I have a write-up from someone who went through a traumatic experience. Now, this is meant to just open our mind to understand what goes on in the mind of people who have who have experienced critical situations. Now, she titled it "When Everyone Has Gone." When everyone has gone, that's when it begins. When the light goes out and the sound of footsteps fades in the distance, that's when the silence starts to speak. The day that looks so normal, so full of people ends, and I'm left alone with the echoes of what I have seen. It's strange. During the day, everything feels covered with laughter, with chatter, and with movement. People come around, they talk, they ask, they share refreshment. It feels like life is normal again. I even smile sometimes, maybe because I'm supposed to, maybe because I don't want to look broken. But when the light comes, the night comes, and everyone is in their huts, when the laughter fades into dream, and I can finally hear my own breath, that's when it all comes back, slowly, quietly, and completely. The pictures start forming again, like shadows on the wall. The sounds return, faint at first, then louder. I see faces. I hear the screams. My heart starts racing. My hand trembles. My mind becomes a stage where the past perform without invitation. And there I am, sitting in the dark, wide awake, while the whole world sleeps peacefully. The calm around me feels cruel. The air feels heavy, thick with memory. I want to sleep, but no rest is coming. My eyes refuses to close. My body is tired, but my mind keeps turning and running, chasing and being chased by things I wish I could forget. Sometimes I whisper to myself, it's over, it's done, but my body doesn't believe me. My heart still jumps at every sound. My breath still shortens when the wind howls. The fear has built its own home inside me, and it doesn't know how to live. In the day, I wear strength like clothing. I laugh when they laugh. I move when they move. I tell them I am fine. They nod, satisfied. They go back to their lives, and I return to mine, the one that begins when the light goes off. The truth is, trauma doesn't end when the people leave. It waits patiently for the silence. It comes alive when the crowd disperses, when there is no one left to pretend. And so, night after night, I sit with it. Sometimes I cry. Sometimes I stare into nothing. Sometimes I write, hoping the words will take away the weight. And maybe they will. But tonight, I am here, listening to the quiet, feeling every heartbeat, remembering, trying to breathe. And that for now is enough. These are the words of an individual who had gone through a traumatic experience. She wrote it down in her own words, and it's beyond what people see. We're looking at the unseen. And Dr. Akinola will be talking to us about some of the unseen challenges that emerges from trauma.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, my medical director. Thank you for that introduction. But I just want to make a tiny correction, sir. I am still the secretary of the Faculty of Psychiatry of the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria and the elected chairman. But my tenure will start in January 2026 by the grace of God. So thank you very much, Dr. Akitoyeshi. It's always a pleasure to see you and to be wherever you anchor events. So we're talking about trauma today. So I think I will start with what the definition of trauma is so that we all have an idea. So we say a traumatic experience is any deeply distressing or disturbing event that overwhelms an individual's ability to cope, and this can lead to lasting negative, remember, it can lead to lasting negative impact on their physical, on their mental and emotional well-being. So, but one thing I want us to remember that trauma could just be an event. It occurs once, but it could be a continuous thing. For example, when we talk about what are the causes of trauma, we talk about abuse of a child, neglect that goes on for years, sexual abuse of a child that goes on from maybe age 6, 8 to when the child gets to 14, 16, that she can now defend herself. Trauma like what is going on in Nigeria, terrorist attack, robbery attack, road traffic accident, these are just an event. And or what about shooting, serious illnesses, problems in the workplace accidents, like those that work in manufacturing, production, and all that. Then we also have natural disasters that can occur, a building collapsing, floods, earthquake, and all that. So these are um, causes of trauma. So it can, remember, it might not even present now. It might present later on in life, but the damage is already there. It's sitting there quietly. So these are things that we must remember. So over to you, Dr. Akintoyesh.
Thank you so very much, ma'am. I know one thing she had said is the fact that it could be a one-time event, but it could leave a lasting impact. And we'll be talking about some of these because beyond the fact that, oh, praise God, somebody came out from an accident, praise God, the way we do it in the African setting, we do not also connect so much with the emotional trauma, with the pain, with the fear. I recall years back finishing secondary school as a young girl, I was so excited to start driving. Oh, if there was anything I wanted so much passionately was to drive. And so I got behind the wheel. I was doing my thing until the day I had to travel. Now, I wasn't the one driving, but we had a very fatal accident that the guy beside me died. And I was frozen in time and in every other thing because I couldn't even we had to leave that place, but I didn't want to enter the vehicle again because I was just like the only thing in my mind was we would die again, we would die, accident, accident. And I could tell you for a very long time, I would prefer to walk than to enter any vehicle than any other thing. And for everyone in the family, it was, oh, praise God, you survived. But what was going on in the inside? And now, Dr. Akin Gabriel will talk to us about the factors that can exacerbate the development of psychological issues, especially in traumatic situations. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akintoye, and thank you so much also, my medical director, for the introduction. I also want to make a correction there too. I ended my term as the vice president of our association a few years ago, and I really appreciate that. So today we're talking about seen and unseen mental health issues in a critical situation. Dr. Akintoye, that's an account. I don't know if that's poetry, but it's about a person's experience of a life experience, which aptly describe what goes on in the life of somebody who's baptized, whether it's a one-off thing or it has been continuous. You said that that when everyone has gone, that is when it all starts. There's so many other conditions for that. But when everybody has gone home, I'll be left alone. And there's so many other things. The ruminations, the thoughts, the pain, and all the things that you do or not do as part of the response, or reaction to trauma. So people will now ask, what is now the difference between the response and reaction? But maybe responses are more targeted at finding solution, whereas reaction could actually be some of the natural or maybe the spontaneous reactions to some of these events. So when we now talk about some of the factors that can exacerbate the the development of psychological issues in traumatic situations, quite a lot of things. Yes, trauma could actually be a one-off thing, like the one Kevin described. It could also be a continuous thing. But one of the major things is that the specific nature of the trauma can actually also influence the development of the psychological issues related to that trauma. For example, was it, for example, maybe something external, maybe military combat, or maybe terror, something that was general, that involved quite a lot of people, a community, a group of people, or it was something that was just individual, something individually experienced. For example, like a sexual assault. This could actually, this specific type of trauma could actually influence the type of psychological issues that may arise from the critical experience. The level of injury or helplessness that the person also experiences will also be that. Of course, in most situations, the feeling of control is lost. Because if the person has a control, he'll be able to do it. He'll be able to actually protect themselves from further harm from that thing. But in the case where the person is helpless and has very little control about maybe how to control pain, because by actually aggravate that feeling. Similarly, the relationship to that perpetrator could also influence or exacerbate the development of psychological issues. For example, we've had reports about family members who would sexually abuse their junior family members, whether male or female. And yes, the victim will know that this is somebody that I respect so much. It's somebody that I really look up so much, that my family also look up so much, and is doing such a thing. In as much as that person may not even be aware of the nature of what is actually going on. Recently, an 8-year-old was just telling us about an experience where church members who lived with them were actually sexually abused serially for so long. And the anger, looking back, and the psychological issues that developed became more complex, especially when she even now mentioned it to other family members who just discountenanced our account there. So the level of pre-existing factors too, was there any previous trauma in the life of this person before this present trauma? I mean, the existence of a previous one could also exacerbate. About a few years ago, an accident occurred along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway where a tanker hit some vehicles and then there was an explosion. A lot of people died. We happened to be around at that time, and we were able to quickly, intervene, just as first responder there. We noticed that some just immediately you could begin to see the reactions. Negative reaction, cry, some actually went unconscious, not as a result of the direct impact of that thing, but what they witnessed about people burning directly in their presence like that. So the presence of previous, and some of them, by the time we now called family members, that she had witnessed such a thing before in the past. So the existence of a previous trauma will also influence or exacerbate psychological issues. Mental health history too, whether the person or the history, will also be part of it. Similarly with genetics, genetical history will also be that. When there's also lack of support, as at the time, like the one I mentioned earlier, where there was no support when the person reported the experience, it will also improve it. There could be a general distrust for people. There could be a general anger, not only even at the perpetrator now, but at almost everybody. And it will actually add to the kind of psychological or the severity of the psychological issues developing. And it may also lead to some cases for some people when you believe that people misunderstand them or don't understand them, to the use of substances that they might now begin to use to try maybe cope. So the substance misuse will also exacerbate psychological issues occurring. Cultural issues is also they're also implicated in this case. In some cases, it's taboo to report certain trauma that the person has experienced, and because of the fear, because of certain things that may occur as a result of it. And when people also find it difficult to cope, to develop the right coping mechanism, it exacerbates something that could actually be done immediately to reduce the severity of the condition. And if it's left standing for a while and it's not being met with the right coping strategy, it will actually become even more severe. Self-blame, the feeling of guilt, and all of that things, including anticipating even other conditions to happen, other things that will also affect or exacerbate the psychological issues as a result of trauma. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. King Gabriel, for that. And I love how you started, because you made a delineation between response and reaction. And response is proactive, while reaction is just you being there. And you know that for a lot of people, usually when things happen, dramatic experience, God forbid, for people living in the northern area, now it's not even just northern, now it's coming down south. Now you find out that a whole lot of times there tend to be lots of reactions to what has happened. We scream, we shout. Let's look at what happened recently in Benue State, the massacre and every other thing. Now, I don't know how many people are pushed to respond effectively. We will still get there, but Dr. Kiola is going to talk to us about how do we recognize the signs and symptoms of the unseen problem? Because we wear clothes, we wear just this mask, we smile, we go to church and we do praise God, Thanksgiving, but something is going on. How do we recognize it? Over to you, Dr. Kiola.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akintoyeshi. One other thing that I want to tell us this afternoon is that, like we have been saying, when trauma is unresolved, we do know that it is an invisible illness. So there is something going on with that individual. Because like she said, like she just said, we are all dressed up, particularly we women, we put on our powder, we put on, somebody says you put on foundation and decking, then we put on our powder, we wear our dresses, and everybody looks at us and you say it is well with this woman. Sometimes you're even envied, but nobody knows what you're going through, like the poem that she read. So it is an invisible illness. And people say you are fine, but you are the one that knows the symptoms. Some days that you don't want to get out of bed, you don't want to go anywhere. So what are the symptoms that this can, like, I talk about immediate things that can happen after a traumatic experience, and sometimes it manifests later on in life. For example, anything that happens within maybe 2 days or immediately after a traumatic event and 1 month, and it's disruptive to that person's life, emotional distress, crying, cannot do anything, not sleeping well at night, hypervigilance. We talk about arousal. You hear a sound and they wake up, they're startled and all that. This can occur within, maximum 2 days to within a month of the event. So sometimes if it is so it cannot allow the individual to work, we say the person could be going through an acute stress disorder. But if the symptoms now progressed after 1 month and it is debilitating, this person is not getting better. They have hyperarousal, they have flashback to the events. They start avoiding things that will remind them of what happened. And of course, they're not sleeping well. They are unhappy, crying spells, and all that. So sometimes you might end up to make a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. But we must remember that an acute stress disorder usually resolves faster. It is not expected to last longer than a month. So by the time he's doing that and the person is still not coping with life and functioning, we begin to think that it could be a post-traumatic stress disorder. And this can be very, very bad, debilitating, that people cannot function. The best way to think about is people that went to war and they're back and they cannot reconnect with their families, their wives, their children. So these are the immediate symptoms, poor sleep, crying spells, remembering, hypervigilance, they're just not there. And so let me talk about other symptoms. So when we say hypervigilance, that is the inability to let down their guards. They are not relaxed. So you can imagine if you are not relaxed, they are not sleeping. You know the effect of that on your productivity. And of course, we also talk about lack of trust, particularly for somebody that maybe was abused. Abuse is numerous. We have physical abuse, there's sexual, there's financial, there's verbal. So, they can't trust people in relationships, even among their friends in school, and they have difficulty in opening up to others. They have issues, and people around them know that there's something going on, but still they won't talk because they don't know how this person is going to react to whatever they say. And sometimes people talk about being dissociated, these horrible feelings as a result of the trauma, all the bad feelings, the uncomfortable things, because they can't deal with these emotions. They tend to repress them. So they keep them away from their real life. So they dissociate themselves. And it's like they try not to think. They say repress it, either consciously or unconsciously. But we all know the effect of not working through problems. Because no matter how you keep it down there, deep down there, the day is going to explode, then trouble will start. So we also talk about some people, they end up having issues with control. They want to control everybody because if you were neglected or abused as a child, there's nothing you do that satisfies the people that were supposed to love you. Even your parents, your guardian, even at work. They will have your immediate boss, cannot trust you with anything, is one complain or the other. And they never appreciate what you do. So people tend not to trust and they want to control their environment if they now get to a place where they can do that. And this is just to overcompensate that feeling of helplessness they had during their traumatic experience. So, and of course, it could have low self-esteem, feelings of worthlessness. And sometimes when, for example, when people are raped, sexual abuse, we find out some people, they tend to go out more and they start having multiple experiences because they're trying to reenact that event that happened. Will they feel better? With all the shame and the anger, will it go away? Some people become so hypersexual, whereas some will become aversive to any sexual activity. So it can go any which way. So loss of esteem, feelings of worthlessness, and you find out some people are just angry, and you wonder where is this anger coming from? At the slightest push, slightest anything, they erupt. So it's because they've not walked through whatever happened to them in whatever form. Okay? And they can't regulate their emotions. So sometimes people develop high blood pressure because they're thinking about it. They're not talking about it. And they just sit there, they are thinking, they are worried. And, so it can lead to that. It can lead to a lot of stress, increase in cortisol level. We all know the effect of constant high level of cortisol in the body. It affects practically all the systems in the body. So they come down with a lot of physical symptoms, because of the high cortisol level, the hormone, we continue to destroy organs in the body. So we cannot overemphasize the sleep difficulties. People can't sleep. So when people tell you, I can't sleep, I wake up 2 a.m. So what do you do? I'm thinking. Please just encourage them to talk to somebody, because usually poor sleep is one of the first symptoms of an emotional illness. And when it persists, they keep talking about it. I can't sleep. I can't sleep. So what's going on? And they can have anxiety symptoms, sweaty palms, they have palpitations and nightmares. They start reenacting all that sweating. They start having digestive issues. They can't go to toilet, or irritable bowel syndrome. They keep going to the doctors, finding out what is wrong with me. And, so all the symptoms can be, but like one significant point that I want to make today, if people have all these symptoms, that does not mean they had a traumatic experience in the past, because some of these symptoms are also symptoms of anxiety disorder and can occur in depression too. So when you have this, or you know somebody that does, please don't make a diagnosis. We are just saying you get get help for the individual. Encourage that individual to see the appropriate doctor or mental health team member so that the appropriate assessment can be done. Then we'll be able to know what is actually going on with that individual. And of course, if all these things are not treated, they can present as anxiety disorder, depressive episode, depression, post-traumatic disorder, and all that. And so if all these things are not, it's like it progresses. So people can actually come down with a psychotic illness, because it now starts to affect their thinking and their thoughts, and ultimately it will lead to an abnormal behavior, and people will start wondering what is going on. So, and ultimately, I think the final thing is when you have an individual, either in your workplace, at home, in the community, in your religious organization, that the person cannot seem to be able to form and maintain good relationship with others, because they can't, because they are remembering constantly what happened to them, the traumatic experience they had. They might have difficulty at work. I know there was somebody at work, a few months back, and she was so nasty to the parent of a 6-year-old. Yes, you couldn't take the sample. You get help. Sometimes it just won't work. And the woman was wailing from morning till afternoon. They hadn't taken the sample for her 6-year-old son. And so you wonder, and I was going to make a report, and, because I said, she has issues, but we all have issues one way or the other. So the idea of this talk this afternoon is that, that things are not going well with you. Let's talk about it. Get help, so that, we all be able to live a spontaneous and enjoyable life, and don't stay with that traumatic experience. Let's talk about it. There's help. Help is available for each and every one of us. So, and if you're not doing well, because if you're not well emotionally, psychologically, cognitively, it might affect promotion at work because everybody can see that you're not very productive. Who's going to promote you? So there could be stalls. The career can be stopped. So these are some of the symptoms or signs of a past traumatic experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Doctor. I can for that. No, while she was talking, I was just trying to recall, some of the issues that I have heard personally in the past, and some of the things that had was done about it. Because I know that usually, most times, people would just try to mask it. Now, the hypervigilance and every other thing, for me, it's still there when I travel. It's like I am helping the driver to apply the brake. We'll apply brake together. We would, whatever it is, if you hold, I would help you to hold here. I'll be looking in front, way beyond what eyes can even see. I am helping you to check, is the road safe? Should you take that bend? Should you overtake? And that has stayed with me even now. So it makes it difficult to, if I have to travel, I will do a long-term preparation in my mind before I will now tell you that yes, I would travel. Because, excuse me, the horror of what I saw and what happened, no, still stays with, or stayed, or still staying now. I don't know the English now. But it's still there. That's the truth. It's still there. I know what she had helped you to understand is that sometimes you'll find out that some people have some behavior, like the sexual abuse thing that she talked about, and they're just going out there distributing it freely, and everybody's shouting on them, why are you doing this? We are not connecting it with the abuse. People have poor relationship at work, and then we're not connecting it with what has happened with him. Now, this is to help us to open our mind, brother, to understand that some of these things are connected. And so we do not just discard it as, is it the only one that has happened to? No, he's still processing it, he's still trying to deal with it. And so we must understand that, because that's way we'll be able to help individuals. So please, let's look at ourselves first of all, because it's not just a learning or a forum for many other people, but you as an individual, and there are still signs that you need to deal with. Now, I've seen somebody who mentioned here that she hasn't been able to drive, or since she had a fatal accident twice, and that has even hindered her from learning. And that even when she had to travel, no matter how long, land or air, she finds it difficult. And thank you, Passy, for saying, Tolu, I can identify with your case. I have a family friend who had a similar experience, but once, and had been able to drive again, and hasn't been able to drive again. I suggest that you go for therapy. Yes, and it's part of what we'll be talking about currently now. Mr. King Gabriel will be talking to us about how to get out of the mental health issues that are associated with trauma. Dr. Kiola earlier told us if it's not well managed progressively, it moves into anxiety, depression, and quite a whole lot of other conditions like that. So, Mr. King Gabriel, how do we get out? How do we get help? We need help. Like me, I need help. Thank you, sir. Sam, unmute, sir. Unmute.
Okay, there. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was saying that we need help. We all need help. And I guess the fact that we identify that we need help is one of the first steps to take in actually getting help. Because it really is difficult to actually recognize the need for help. For a lot of people, the symptoms or those signs that Dr. Akela mentioned earlier has become like a way of life. It has become almost like normal. The fear, the anxiety, the always checking the windows and the locks and everything before, so always wearing certain clothes and other things that become like a way of life. So doing otherwise is, according to them, is abnormal. So they have to do those things. They have to feel some form of anxiety. I've had somebody told me that something is going on. I said, what's happening? He said, I'm not feeling anxious. What do you mean you're not feeling it? I'm not. I'm supposed to at this time of day. So, well, that's another thing entirely. So for them, anxiety and some of those symptoms have become like a way of life. So identifying the fact that maybe we need help is actually a major step in actually overcoming this condition because of so much familiarity with them. But before then, another thing we might need to talk about is some of the what you can call a psychological first aid, as it were, before we even get to this condition. We have seen that traumatic experiences will eventually lead to a diagnosis of PTSD, which will also involve some any other diagnosis as well in with different levels of severity. So the first way to get out of this, actually for us, both the responders, both the, especially family members, to know how we can help in the first instance. I mentioned the other time that the young lady was abused, approached her parents, and mentioned this, her uncle so is doing this. And then she was rebuked, pulled her hair a little bit and stuff like that. Come on, stop saying that kind of nonsense. And then she went back and, of course, internalized most of those things. But what could have been done? So that's why I would say, and again, some of us, part of trauma you're talking about could also involve things as vehicular accident, road traffic accident that maybe might happen spontaneously anywhere or any form of thing. Actually, perhaps maybe some of the things that may actually end up at the end of the day is to make a case for a psychological individuals in mental health as first responders to traumatic incidences, building collapses, fire outbreaks, and all of that, including accidents. There should be a mental health expert in that team that will provide like a form of psychological first aid. What are some of the things that we are talking about? We're talking, for example, as diffusing and debriefing. These are procedures to help manage the negative experiences that the individual would experience after the traumatic experience. For example, accidents. For example, a fire accident. For example, a flood that has taken over area. For example, maybe the terrorist attacked into the village and then the rescued victims could not be diffused. Diffusion as a procedure is usually administered a few hours or thereabout the incident. You wonder how would that work when everybody is crying, when everybody is at a loss, they are anxious, they are tense and everything. But that's exactly the case of diffusing. Look for a safe place somewhere, even maybe not too far from that particular incident, and set up like a small group there and then begin to more or less like diffuse the accumulation of the what can call the tension that may lead to some other thing at that particular not too long after that particular incident. Furthermore, some other things that could also be done is debriefing, which usually will come up about a day or a few days after the traumatic experience, where the person can now sit down, or other survivors of the incidents will also now sit down and share and debrief each other so that they can actually relieve some of these things as well, including individuals who have also gone through personal trauma. They could also undergo that. That is, for example, if you get a report, oh, I was sexually abused by this person, instead of asking them to go away or maybe not listening to them, we could actually hear them out. Let them say what they have to say. Let us take some tests and then go ahead and develop. So that could actually serve as a first aid in the first instance. But perhaps maybe we are unable to now do this, and later on, this person is now presenting with some of those symptoms that we talked about earlier. And then we now begin to now say, oh, I need help. Oh, there's treatment that is available. There's treatment that's available. A lot of things. The first thing to do, how to get out of mental health issues that are associated with trauma, is to get treatment. So treatment most of the time will include quite a lot of a collection of interventions that the major aim is to help to reduce or remove those negative experiences that person, feeling that person is having, the anxiety, the sleep issues, some of the pains and everything, some of the fears and anxiety and worries. That's the target and the goal. So the first thing is to get help. In this case, professional help. To seek professional help from people who are trained. There are so many. the type of therapies and procedures, and everything that are actually designed for this particular program. The popular one, of course, is the trauma-focused psychotherapy that has been, that is focused on that is trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy that is specifically programmed to assist individual to deal with, to walk through their traumatic experiences that may be affecting them at that particular time. There's many of them. There's the eye movement desensitization and reprocessing procedure as well, which is also another thing. Of course, these are like formal, procedures that could also be administered, even in an informal setting, as long as the environment has been made conducive to that effect. For example, in a camp, or maybe somewhere else, that aside from general a formal kind of thing like that. There's so many other. There's other behavioral procedures too. The prolonged exposure, that will also be done to actually help that person to overcome or to desensitize the experience and able to now move on there. There's cognitive processing therapy that is also part of that to also help the person to overcome the condition and move on with life. To a large extent, also, the person may also require some medications. As part of the mental health team, a psychiatrist will also prescribe some medications to help that person to overcome perhaps some very severe symptoms that may be there. If the person has not been assessed to require medication. So this can be done. So definitely there's quite a lot of help that can be done in terms of psychotherapy, in terms of medication, as well as support from family members. But I guess we're talking about that later. Then most importantly, what the individual themselves can also do is to be mindful. Mindfulness, to take that as a self-care for themselves. Being in the here and now, to be grounded in now, to try to find a way to detach away from the past, from to just focus a little bit more on the present now than in the past. We always say that it's like driving a car. When you're driving a car, the best place to look at is the front. If you have to look at the back, we have the rear view mirror. Well, it's tiny because what you just need just a quick glance at the back, just to reposition and realign yourself at the back, not to keep looking at it. Because if you keep looking at the past most of the time like that, you will actually have a crash, and but we need to look at the present as well as forward in order to overcome things like that. So these are some of the ways we can do to psychotherapy, the trauma-focused CBT, the prolonged exposure therapy, the cognitive processing therapy, like we mentioned, or through the use of medication. But we also emphasized the importance of psychological first aid, which we believe will actually go a lot in actually preventing future PTSD. Mindfulness self-care is also very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. As you were talking about it, I said to myself, maybe my exposure therapy is not enough. Now, I would share something that happened with you. Some times ago, I said, okay, let me just get back to driving and every other thing. And then my husband said, let's go. That day, I prayed to God the Father, I prayed to God the Son, I prayed to God the Holy Spirit. I told them they should go with us. And then we were about to go out. Suddenly, somebody blocked our gate. As they blocked the gate, I told my husband, I said, that must be the sign from heaven above that we should not go out today. He made sure that the person moved the car and then we went. But it was a tough one. I did go out, I drove and every other thing, but it was a really, really tough one for me. And this that we're talking about is just me talking about driving. Now you can imagine people who wake up to hear gunshots and quite a whole lot of other things like that. And it's been like a repeated battle over and over in that environment and other things. Now, there's a question here Dr. Akiola is going to quickly take for us is, how and who can help people who are in IDP camps? Now, these are people who have lost lives, lost families, lost homes, lost quite a whole lot of things to recover and get proper rehabilitation. How can we help these ones, and who is qualified to help them?
Thank you, Doc. I mean, that is a huge question that will require a huge answer, because we do know that, yes, they've gone through traumatic experiences. They definitely need help. But we must remember that issues like this, we have to start with policy making, then implementation. Right now, everybody focuses on the social aspect of traumatic experience for all these people in ID camp. Nobody's talking about the psychosocial, the psychological part of it. So that's what we need to enforce. And I believe this is one of the reasons we are having this webinar, that we have it consistently every month, to put the information out there so that eventually the relevant authorities will hear and they will put things into place. You know, you can't just walk into an IDP camp. So there must be a policy and it must be implemented, and everybody must think about psychosocial rehabilitation. It's not just giving them mattresses, food, blankets. Who is talking to them? Who is, even while they're in the camp, we have heard instances of females still being raped. So this trauma is like, it's perpetuating. It just keeps going on and on. So I hope we have people that can help all of us. And of course, we know it's the mental health team that can help, but we need that, what will I say, is it the power, the opportunity to be able to go in there, the access to every camp that is in the country, and to be able to go in and help this individual. So it is a huge thing, but if it is in our consciousness, in the consciousness of the government, to put this policy there, to implement it federally and every state, then we will be able to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, ma'am. Thank you so very much, ma'am. You know, I recall during the coronavirus when there was that outbreak, we were locked down, everyone was at home. And then there was a psychosocial support group that was brought together to speak with people and everyone like that. I was part of them. But I recall that, you know, sometimes when you put a call through to and say, hello, sir, your results came out positive for coronavirus. Yeah, one particular one was even traumatizing for me as especially the man started ranking costs of me. So like I said, no, I'm not the one that said it. It's the lab. It was the test. The man was like, your generation. I was like, I had to cut off. He now called me back. I said, what did you say? I said, sir, your test result. Oh, the man started again. Well, like Dr. Akiola said, there should be a policy in place, a policy that would help people actually navigate difficulty. Sometimes it could be very distressing breaking such news, or helping people to come to terms with the reality of what had happened to them. But we must be there. And like you said, it's mental health practitioners that are best qualified to be able to work with people to handle and to deal with their issues even at such a time like this. Now, I'm going to go into Dr. Akike, who's going to take the last question for us. And that is the fact that what role does the society plays? You know, I recall that sometimes when things happen, you will hear comments like, hey, it is the will of God. You'll hear comments like, if this one does not happen, then another one will happen. No, it's better in Yoruba, be yo she, mi o she. Like, if this one does not happen, then another one will happen. And sometimes people are like, I once had a bereavement session with the family, and a young boy said, you know what is even making me angry is that why would God? And I said, no, how would you conclude that it was God that took your father? You know, he said everybody said be thanking God. So why am I thanking God for? No, is that it's the will of God. What is the will of God in this? Now, what is the role of the society in helping people manage traumatic situation, crisis, and things like that? How can we help so that we won't further cause more damage, with people? Over to you.
Thank you so much. A lot of whys there, quite a lot of why in the face of trauma when it happens. Oh, of course, you must also have heard that, why did you dress that way? You too, didn't you notice that the dress that you are wearing is so skimpy, so this and that? Or why did you leave it there? Just in case, for example, for that individual whose car was stolen, car that he got loan for, that he has not even paid a month, was now stolen. For example, and I say, why didn't you leave it there? Why did you leave it there? Or why didn't you do a lot of stuff and everything like that? You know, a lot of why. The will of God, why this? And people will now be questioning, oh God, why, this and that. I guess these are some of the just natural reactions that we talked about as part of the attempt to cope with the traumatic experience. The most important thing that the role society needs to or can play in this is understanding. When people ask questions like that, the question we also now ask is that perhaps those individuals who are saying why, perhaps they are also traumatized. Maybe they are also traumatized in one way or the other that we may not know. Maybe they're also carrying some form of trauma. And that's why somebody will now say, why did you dress in that way? Why did you leave the car? I mean, you can't take the car inside your bedroom. Or why did you do that? Why did you do that? Perhaps maybe they are also one way or the other reacting to one form of one thing or the other. So it's understanding our own vulnerability, that every individual is vulnerable. It could happen to anyone. Traumatic situation, not as much as statisticians might want to just bring up the probability here and there, but things like accidents, could happen at any time to anybody. You want to be careful and that and that, but when something happens like that, you want to understand, oh, this is something, first of all, this is a traumatic situation. We are not looking for, is this person's fault or is that person's fault? It's an understanding that something has happened that requires assistance, that requires support, that we need to come together to help the individual to overcome. It could be a loss. It may be the loss of a loved one. It could be the loss of some items or personal item, for example. It could be, any other thing. So in the understanding that, this is a loss that we need to respond to, we can now marshal out plans to help that person by being with that person, allowing the person to ventilate, to talk about it, and say things about it, and do that. Part of understanding also is understanding the kind of trauma, because what is traumatic to an individual may not be to an individual, but that doesn't reduce the trauma as much. I'm looking at a time now so that we can move on. Because for a child whose toy was broken by an angry father, that toy could be a trauma, a traumatic experience, than another way. Is it not just ordinary doll, or it's not just this ordinary something? Or the father came around and saw the child, he has built a sand castle on this very lovely lawn, and he just comes there angry and then dismantles the whole thing. That also represents a traumatic experience to that child. So understanding these things will actually help us. So that one will now make us to actually now come together to profile, to assist the individual to be able to talk about the procedure, and also maybe help them to get the required help. I mentioned the issue of first aid the other time. We could come together, help them to talk, thereby diffusing in an informal manner, or debrief them in an informal manner, but that would achieve almost the same result that the formal debriefing or diffusing will achieve. And of course, by assisting them to get professional help is also some of the things that we can do. So we need to remove stigma, we need to remove biases, and then face the fact that somebody is in need of care and support. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. King Gabriel, for that. People own their story. Let them express themselves. Don't shh. Sometimes they shh. Don't talk about it like that.
Don't shush them off.
They don't shut them off. Let them say it. Let them express themselves. That's the only way some of them can get it out, and then they can now deal with it effectively. Otherwise, it could become a circle of issues and distresses that could go on in their mind. Thank you so very much. We're going to take last words from our speakers. It's been 1 hour. Thank you so very much. Dr. Akiola, last word from you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I think, like I said earlier, there is no difficulty, there's no problem under the sun that does not have a solution. So I want to encourage all of us and people that will know to get help. It's just as if we can't overemphasize that, and let them know that help is available, and indeed they can get well and they can live a productive life. Thank you very much.
Despite the unseen, You can get help. Help is available. That's what Dr. Akel has told us. Own your story. You don't have to be ashamed of it. Yes, thank you so very much. Captain.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, last word, of course. Yes, trauma can happen to anyone. It is actually possible to get out of it. Admitting or acknowledging that you have these experiences does not make you a weak person. Stop the guilt trip. And let's get some help.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Stop the guilt trip. Now, sometimes some people feel guilty for going through. It's not your fault. No, it's not your fault in any way. So don't allow people to guilt trip you. Yes, Professor Fatai is asking if there's an helpline that can be promoted and made available in all. We do not have a toll-free line, but we have maybe Wale is on the call. Can you quickly just drop the hospital line so that people can get to call? And you also know that one of the greatest things that we love in the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital is that our doors are open, and so you can always walk in and get help. Wale will try and drop the line for us. If he's not able to, we will also post it on our Facebook page and an Instagram page. So you can also reach out to us, send a message. We'll also be able to help you out and direct you or give you the appropriate guidance that you need. It's been a productive 1 hour, and I would say that our speakers have done great justice to the conversation today. Beyond the seen, the unseen, that which is not spoken about, that which we hide behind clothes and makeup and no, like the like said, foundation and other things like that, it's there. It's affecting a lot of people. It has even grown with some people from childhood into adulthood, and it's now affecting their relationship with their children and family members, among other things like that. We must pay more attention to it. We must also give support. Allow people to be themselves. Allow people to mourn. Allow people to grieve. Allow people to go through their things. Then, if they need help eventually, just be the support. If you do not have anything to say, keep quiet, rather than contribute more problems to other people's problem. Thank you so very much for everyone who has been on the call, for our medical director who is always giving us the opportunity to showcase this platform on a monthly basis. Thank you so very much. Please be a vanguard, be a helpline for us. All right, so Wally has responded that will be made available on our social media handle. All right, so we'll do that before the close of work today. Okay, so be a vanguard, help us to spread the message. We do have so many few people attend this webinar today, but please just help us share it, keep sharing, and then please like and follow. Just like, follow us. We'll just be glad that you're part of what we are doing, what we're trying to build. Until we come your way again, now come closer. We have something wonderful brewing for the month of November, and that's about men's mental health. We do not talk about that so much. Hey, it's also an hush thing. Don't talk about it. Wear your ego on your shoulder. Men don't cry. Men don't, but they do in silence. In that the bedroom, they are crying. You think they are betting and a lot of other things like that. But please be a part of this. By the third Thursday in November, by the grace of God, we will be happy to come your way again. So until then, from all of us, from the medical director and the Yaba Voice team, we say thank you. Bye. Enjoy your day.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for having us. Yes, they can.